Hello everyone and welcome to our third round of the Liqui Moly Pro Sport Bike class in the Mopar CSBK National Road Racing Championship at Atlantic Motorsport Park. We're here for the first round of our doubleheader weekend at Shubenacadie, presented by ProCycle and Honda Canada. Today's Liqui Moly Pro Sport Bike Atlantic Opener is brought to you by Dalton Timmis Insurance, Magneti Marelli, Dunlop, and Mopar. This is Colin Fraser filling in for our series announcer Frank Wood. He'll be back shortly. I'm joined in the booth by our racing veteran Andrew Murray, a former organizer, racer, and official on the national and international scene. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
It's great to be here, Colin. Thank you.
There we head out on our warm-up lap, and we're going to have a look at the grid starting in the back row 4. Grant Smith, I believe this is his first trip to Atlantic Motorsport Park on his Kawasaki, and you can see Corey Canfield. I think you probably know him, one of the regulars here.
Yeah, Corey Canfield has a lot of seat time at this track. He's been here for a number of years. He's got a lot of history. His family has a lot of history at this track, so it's great to see him on the grid.
Looking at our first two rows, of course, Kenny Reeman, our points leader. I think the most interesting person here is Ron Monroe, making his first start in the season.
Fantastic position for Ron leading into this race, coming in fourth position, just starting up the second row. And he'll be looking to make an impact on these national Superbike guys this weekend with his local knowledge, that's for sure.
Yeah, I believe Ron is the reigning regional ARL champion and a guy who knows the track very well and a veteran who has been at other national rounds. So we are not surprised to see Ron up front. The question is, how far can he get at his home track?
That's true, and like you said, Ron's involved with the series here locally and does a lot of work around the track. He knows the track inside out. He does a lot of coaching as well with other young riders and schools and so on. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well he does today.
There's one of our onboard cameras. I'm not 100% sure who we were watching with. There's Canfield and Stacy Nesbitt, who's back from Europe, joining the series once again here, her second year as a pro aboard that Honda. That's Nesbitt in the middle of that shot, looking backwards from one of our other Pro Sport Bike 600cc middleweight class motorcycles, and we're rolling up, looks like to the front of the grid, and there's our senior tech official Fred with the flag, and he'll be getting out of there shortly. So that was Thomas Kazaz's bike we were looking at there.
Yeah, Thomas running really well this year. Looking to see how he does at this Pro Sport Bike race today. So he's certainly got his eyes on the front row and wants to make an impact on what Kenny's been doing.
So now all the riders are looking at the Blue Streak Racing start lights, Formula One style. They go on one at a time. When they all go off, they take off. 3 bikes in a row at the front here, a little bit narrow and a little bit tight in the first turn. There we're off, and they're heading down, crazy drag race and down the hill into turn 1. Unbelievable trip up and down here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. And that is Reedman, our reigning series champion and points leader on that Kawasaki, and he is already in the lead. Kazaz in second, Michael Taylor on his Triumph in third, and I believe in fourth place was rookie pro Leki, which was a fantastic start for him.
That was a great start for Philip there in running in fourth right now. You could see about that start that Ron really had a difficult time, carried the front wheel way too high coming out of the off the grid, so he's got a bit more work ahead of him than he had hoped.
And there we had that on board with Monroe. You can actually read some of the details of his suspension setup on that sticker on his front fork. Now we're back on board with Kazaz in second, and this is actually a very accurate impression of what it's like to handle a bike on the roller coaster.
Yeah, the roller coaster, it's certainly, if you haven't experienced it, it takes a lot of work to manhandle a bike through this race course.
Great shot from Kazaz there, and he is right on top of Reedman. So we have a veteran here, 2-time champion points leader, right behind him, second-year pro on that Peterborough Cycle Parts Canada backed Yamaha, and arguably this is maybe Kazaz's best effort so far to run up there. And I think that might be Taylor on the Triumph in third, and both Kazaz and Taylor coming off bad weekends at St. Eustache 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Kazaz's best shot here is going to be to keep a good eye on Kenny as they go through turn 2 here now, and he'll keep an eye on him, try not to work too hard, try to get a feel for how Kenny's doing, and pick and choose where he might be able to make a pass on Kenny.
Right now everybody looking pretty close together. Good shot of the pack as we head through 3. We had a good look at Taylor, who of course is a 2-time overall national champion, has hundreds of laps on hundreds of bikes here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. He missed part of practice, so he's a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of setup. So we were maybe expecting Taylor to challenge Reedman, but it's definitely Kazaz pouring on the pressure as they head crazy. Look at Monroe in the background trying Leki on a very wide line.
It's a real difficult back straight. There's not much straight about the back straight there at Atlantic Motorsport Park, and very bumpy and hard to get the bike set up for turn 7, an important corner.
And in the background there, Leki is still holding off Monroe. Fantastic effort by Leki, his Kawasaki, in front of the reigning regional champions bike. And of course, Monroe probably pretty frustrated right now, probably feels like he could be with this lead group.
Yeah, he's going to start losing touch if he doesn't make a move shortly. There's no question about that. As he comes up the inside, going down the front straight, we'll see if he can do something into turn 1 now.
Yeah, that was borderline terrifying. Monroe heading over towards the pit wall. I'm sure that moves some boards back. Good shot here of Riedman on that Sturgis, Liqui Moly, Joe Rocket back Kawasaki, and he looks like he's starting to push. Maybe he's a little more comfortable that the tires have come in. It looked to me like he's ramped up the aggression level slightly.
Yeah, after getting that pit board, he knows that someone's right behind him. I don't know if he knows it's Thomas, but he's going to start turning it up here to see what he can do and see how settled he can get that bike down the back straight in order to set up for turn 7.
Now, last year he rode the Triumph and took the championship 2 years in a row actually aboard that. This is the new Kawasaki for him, an actual 636cc machine and several of the slightly oversized machines in this dyno controlled category here, all with basically the same horsepower, but perhaps the 636 with slightly more torque than the Yamaha.
Yeah, and that torque is, just a little bit more torque here in this track would be useful. There's no question. It's not a huge horsepower track, obviously, but a little bit of torque is going to make a huge difference for Kenny, and it might help him fight off Thomas Kazaz for the remainder of the race. We'll have to wait and see.
And these guys are getting clear. There's Taylor in third, and I think Monroe may be on Taylor's tail, so maybe he finally got by Leki, and full marks for Leki holding off Monroe that long, but I think, unfortunately, it was almost inevitable that Ron Monroe would move on up because he's definitely someone we expect to see feature in this event.
Yeah, you need to know where to thread the needle through here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. It is a bumpy track, but there is some smooth areas, and that local knowledge that Ron has is going to help wind his way through and hopefully see if he can't catch on to the back of this lead group.
A little bit conservative down there through 4, and I think, the camera doesn't fully do this place justice, how crazy it is.
Look at that. There goes Ron passing in what's called 6A and 6B there on the inside. That's a really courageous move to set up and make that pass leading into turn 7 on Michael Taylor. He's probably just shaking his head right now thinking he just passed Michael Taylor going into turn 7.
Yeah, not easily done in any category. Michael Taylor, a dogged rider and, a real tough competitor, a fair guy, but definitely aggressive, and feels like, first time here with the Triumph for Taylor, maybe missed on the setup a bit, and I don't think Ron Monroe has missed by an inch on the setup. I think he probably knows exactly what he wants in terms of chassis feel, and of course, the interesting question always is tires and how they're going to hang out. It's a crazy hot and humid day here at Atlantic Motorsport Park, so that has to be on the riders' minds, and also a little bit on Riedman's mind, because he's heading for Superbike on his 1000 in an hour and a half.
And that's right. Track temperature by our folks at Dunlop was today at 58 degrees, and that's going to have an impact on tire choice and how long those tires can last, the optimal time laps they can get out of those tires for sure, and whether the tire choice was the right one we'll probably know here shortly.
Well, as Freddie Spencer would always say, Freddie loved to say, tire preservation will be key in every situation, even if it's in the pits. Yeah. So heading up the hill there as I pick on a famous world champion, and we watch Riedman, who still really hasn't got clear of Kazaz. I do feel like he's picked up the pace and settled in. Well, a little bit of a moment there, and of course Kazaz has to be optimistic this close if Riedman's having a little bit of drama, and Riedman of course had some extreme drama in that exact spot a couple of years ago with Jody Christie.
He certainly did. He came off there, and it's with Kazaz, it's got to build his confidence to be able to really ride with Kenny through these laps that he's done so far here in this race, and it's going to help his confidence, there's no question, and he might be able to just find that right time, that spot to make a pass on Kenny, or maybe wait for Kenny to maybe slip up, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen the way he's riding right now.
Yeah, Kazaz definitely putting on the pressure. Riedman not making too many mistakes, and if there's a mistake, it's because he's aggressive and trying to make a break. Riedman's engine built by Scott Cameron, who's definitely had some fast bikes. Rob Egan, Brooklyn Cycle Racing, producing the engine in that Yamaha, so definitely these bikes are well sorted out, but of course at Shuby, really it's suspension that you're concerned about much more than horsepower.
It is all about suspension. At that track, everybody you think you want to put money into your motor, but you really want to start with the suspension. Ron Monroe's bike, I know that his head on his machine and that bike has been built by Miller, Scott Miller, and obviously a really strong machine, and he also also has a lot of work done on his suspension by John Cornwell as well with Olin's.
Right, and John Cornwell is sort of the guru of Canadian racing, also lots of experience on the American front and world level too. Guy you hear normally referred to as Corn Dog or the world-class charm school operator. That's another one that comes up with John Cornwell. So Reedman coming out of into three up the hill. Here we go on board. That's with Reedman there. You can see that Dunlop DOT spec front tire working really hard. This is a crazy section of the track downhill, and we're just about to crank it up on the roller coaster.
It's probably the most important turns on the track, this whole section. You know, you would argue that the most important turn on the track is turn 7, but your corner speed into turn 7 is going to be dictated by how you manage the roller coaster to get through there if you want to make up time. So that's where the local knowledge comes, and obviously the experience that we're seeing at Kenny, he's handling it very well. And
worth mentioning too, with so many blind corners and so many tough decisions and so many places where you really have to kind of steel your resolve and have a lot of confidence in your setup and your bike. But here heading up, this is a great time to talk about this. You're just in turn 11 heading for the sky. You don't see the track, and you can run out of room there in a hurry, and it really takes time to get your confidence up to commit on the exit onto the front straight, and of course that could be the drag race to the finish.
Turn 11 is especially interesting, especially when you're, as a spectator, you don't even notice it, but when you're on a bike, it literally looks like a ramp into space. It's an impressive corner, and it does take a lot of courage to make that corner work for you. I don't want to put any kind of curse on Kazaz, but he seems to have lost a couple of bike lengths at a time when he shouldn't. Reedman continues to be pretty relentless in his metronomic attack at this. I haven't seen him make too many errors, few slides and whatnot. There you can see it dancing around, but he's hammered down on the back straight. Of course, much easier on a 600 than a Superbike to make sure you have that throttle wide open. Again, on board with Reedman on the transitions through this section up to the carousel, where there's been lots of drama in the past. That's one of the passing positions is in turn 9 leading into that carousel. It's a common spot for people to try to make a pass. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see something happen there. If Thomas can get back on the rear wheel of Kenny as the next few laps go, that might be a spot where you might see him try to make a move. Yeah, Kazaz doesn't seem to have lost too much more time at this particular juncture. He's still working not necessarily the draft, but he's within a few bike lengths. So I wouldn't say that Reedman's broken clear, but he's giving it the old college try. Also, if you notice here, Andrew, in the back a couple of these shots, Monroe is not a factor, but he hasn't lost any ground. If anything, he slightly caught these guys. So unfortunately, those first couple of laps where he got a little bit held up really seemed to have hurt him, and you can't help but wonder, certainly from a local perspective, what it would have been like to have Monroe in the middle of this battle. And we can think back to his start where you saw that front wheel high in the sky, where he might have been, would he have been able to hang on to these guys? It's hard to say. The other thing that Ron is going to be battling with a little bit is his historic crashes in third position at this track. So hopefully he might be able to get rid of that demon here. If he can hang on to that third place position, if he can continue to push and keep moving forward, you never know where he may end up, but certainly he's in a great position now. Well, certainly in national racing, the podium, anything on the podium is respectable, particularly if you're not a regular on the series. There we can see our starter, Chris Chappell, holding up the halfway, the crossed flags, and man, it looks like Reedman took that to heart. We know after halfway it's possible the race could be called official, and you might declare a winner on laps led or something like that. So interesting that, if anything, Reedman now really seems to be picking it up as we go on board through 3. Whoa. Bit of a dramatic moment there, and Kazaz again has to be optimistic seeing something like that. That's right, and at the very least, Kazaz is still there. If something were to happen with Kenny, he might be back on the rear wheel even closer, but it's got to be helping Thomas's confidence leading through this race, leading into the Superbike race later on today, and into future races when we move on to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Well, and of course at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, it's super difficult for anyone to break away. Both the divisions, and both amateur and pro, both sport bike and superbike, tend to be drafting battles. Very hard to get clear. But what's interesting is, Reedman doesn't need to win this race. He has a good points lead. He is definitely the favorite. He's expected to take the championship. But once you're in the habit of winning all the time, it just seems like it's easier. And here, as a quick look,
I should say quick look, but there's Leki, who had such a great start, and there's Stacy Nesbitt on her CBR 600 RR, and they're definitely in the middle of a crazy battle.
It almost looked like Stacy was going to try to make a pass on the outside of turn 10, which I've seen people do, and it can be done, but it is a tricky spot to do it as she goes down now into turn 1, leading in the inside, but it looks like Philip still has the lead going down into turn 2 now.
Yeah, great pressure from Stacy, and of course, almost in one, it looked like she backed out of it at the last second. It looked like that could work, and she's having a good look at Leki. Leki, a first-year pro, showing very well. He's had a bit of an up-and-down trip here, but he's been racing very well. Stacy's been running the FIM Cup in Europe, hasn't done all of our rounds, and this is her second year as a pro. She was co-rookie pro last year. The Brooklyn Cycle Award she shared with Thomas Kazaz. So lots of riders here attracting attention, and of course that's your goal, to climb the ladder and prove what you're capable of. And we had a glimpse of the rider up ahead. We'll try and get your name there. Leki, if anything, maybe just getting a little bit ahead on the back straight, but Stacy seems to have caught him back up already.
Yeah, and you'll see, setting up for that turn 7, Philip's bike may not quite be set up just right, because he can't quite get set up for turn 7 where he needs to be to hammer through that corner, and allowing Stacy to get back up on the rear wheel of Phil as they came through the carousel. Now they're up on leading into the front straight.
There you can see Stacy making up a little bit of ground through 11 towards the start-finish line, not quite as close as last time. And it's interesting, I have no idea if this is a trend, but the Hondas all seem to be very fast through that turn 11 section. We've seen this particularly in the amateur events. Yeah,
working really well. The Hondas seem to be work well at this track, actually. I don't know if they're a little bit easier to set up, it's hard to say, but Stacy certainly has hers dialed in, and it's great to see her. Everything's all about seat time, and any seat time she can get is going to help prepare her for the stuff she's doing in Europe. So it's great to see her here in Nova Scotia competing this weekend.
Yeah, very rare for a Canadian to get that opportunity in Europe, and we're all excited and cheering for it. It's also interesting, Leki, who's a bigger adult male, definitely using his body, arm wrestling
right
the bike.
Here, you can see it.
Not really something Stacy has the ability to do. And of course, those 650 Hondas that she races in Europe are fairly large machines, and that's got to be a difficult challenge for her. But here in Canada, she knows the track's a little better, and she knows her CBR 600. She climbed the ladder in the Honda 125 and 250 series, champion in both, Rookie of the Year, co-Rookie of the Year with Kazaz last year. So Stacy's certainly a person with a lot of experience, and still quite young. And Leki, well, here we go.
Almost. She keeps thinking about making that pass down into turn 1. It's interesting that you say the work that she's doing overseas on that bike that's a bit heavier, because it does show here. People don't realize until they get here how physically demanding this track is. It's a lot of work to manage this. You forget about the 100 feet of elevation change and so on. It's only 1.8 kilometer circuit. It's hard to pass. It is bumpy, but it's a lot of work to muscle a motorcycle around. So she's doing really, really well, and it's great to see her here.
Well, I certainly don't have the experience riding here that you do, but one of the big challenges when you're new to this track and trying to pick up your speed is it's easy to hold on too tight, and that sounds so simple, but you wear yourself out really quickly, and you're halfway through the race and you're thinking, man, I can't do this. And it's not that you're out of shape, you're causing your own problems, and that not only makes you tired, but it makes the bike handle badly. And look at Stacy really looking.
Oh, there it goes. Yeah, there's she going into that carousel. Like I mentioned earlier, that is a popular spot, just to outbrake someone going into the carousel.
Yeah, that was a nice pass, and she's been working that for a while, and I'm sure she's a little frustrated. And I'm suspicious now that Stacy finally found her spot that Leki may be struggling to hang on here, because she seems very determined and impatient there. And probably the last time we saw her riding with this confidence in our series was in Edmonton last year, where she really was in a couple of terrific battles at that races at Castrol Raceway.
And just looking at her body position and how the bike's working and how it's managing, I said, this specific track, she doesn't look like she has to put a whole lot of input to the bike, and it's really set up well. It's cornering well down the back straight. She didn't seem like she had to really work the bike as much as Leki did down the back straight, which probably led to that ability to outbrake Leki back into the carousel. And as you can see now, she's obviously in one lap, she's pulling away from him now.
And of course,
you'll see
her lighter weight doesn't hurt on the backstretch.
That's right.
Chassis also seems to be a factor, and it would seem like her bike, you saw just a little bit of a wheelie up the hill, which is nice if you can manage it. But, good. Well, you know, I gotta give full props to Leki. He is still hanging in there, and I admire his pluck. But it looks like he lost a little bit of time in the carousel. So Stacy, who's fast in 11 onto the front straight, does seem to be starting to make a break.
Yeah, really strong. Watching her go down into turn 1. Hard to really tell how far the gap is to the rider in front of her, and so we'll see how she makes out as the race progresses.
Back on the roller coaster, and I think that's a lapped rider. I think that's our rider in about 7th or 8th, Grant Smith, and we mentioned him earlier that this is his debut here on the Kawasaki. So really important. There's Grant getting those laps in because it makes a huge difference, that experience. But he's about to see another Kawasaki, very similar to his, but one with a very simple number plate.
That's right. That number 1 indicates, obviously, he's holding the championship from the previous year, and it's showing as he comes up on that lap traffic now. And again, it's great to see Grant traveling east to come to this track. There's something to be gained from every track you can get to, and this track's all about the seat time. The more seat time you can get here, it's all going to pay off in the end. So if we can get him back in future years, you'll see Grant progress as well.
Well, it's funny. We've seen so many good riders not like this track their first time, and with a little bit of time and experience, and once they get comfortable and their confidence comes up and they start to understand how the fast guys work it, then suddenly they start to like it. And it's an amazing place. There was only really one other track I've been to like this in North America. That was the old Laconia track, and other than a couple of tracks in the UK, there's nothing like this, and no one's ever going to build another track with all these different kinds of corners, and particularly the elevation. And honestly, for me, elevation just makes it so much more fun riding the motorcycle.
I always say this track specifically, it has a lot of character, and the character comes from that elevation and some of those blind turns, and that famous roller coaster that named as through the turn 4, 5, 6 section of the racetrack. So it's great to see Kenny running really well now. Obviously, as checked out from Thomas Kazaz, it'd be interesting to know what tire choices. In conversations with some of the Dunlop guys, they were feeling that the soft tire was going to be the best option, even though after the races the tire may have looked a little more worn out, but they were getting more traction throughout the race on the softer tire.
Yeah, in terms of durability, we're not looking to see how many hundreds of miles we can go here. We're just trying to get through the length of the race, and if you use that tire up over the course of it, that is actually an ideal situation if you have the confidence. And of course, one of the ironies of motorcycle road racing is those really worn tires late in the race frequently yield some crazy fast lap times. And Reedman here, I hate to use the expression, is styling away in the lead. He looks good. He's not making any mistakes. A few slides with aggressive riding, trying to break free from Kazaz, and he certainly did. Decent effort, no doubt, by Kazaz, and they've got to be happy with that, particularly given there's a race tomorrow here with the doubleheader, and of course then on to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park for the final 2 rounds. But Reedman has been the class of the field this year. There you see the last lap flag from our starter. He's had a challenge a little bit from Taylor, who's in 4th right now, a little bit from Kazaz, a little bit from Louis Rafa, who we should mention is out with a broken collarbone from a vintage race. Honda mounted Louis Rafa, having run up front and actually won a race with the series last year. But in the end, the story is mostly Reedman, and this new Kawasaki of his works very, very well. And there's a lot of discussion whether it's a good idea to ride the 600 when you're going to have to ride the Superbike later in the day, whether that helps or not. But with Reedman, who is a young man in very good shape, he's a serious motorcycle road racer, it seems like this combination of things is working for him.
It's definitely working for him, and if you could use a word, the bike's acting really predictable for him right now. If that tire has dropped off a bit throughout the race, which they do, it seems to be acting in a predictable manner for him, and he seems really steady as things go through, working his way through the carousel now. Turn 10, just a couple more corners till he's going to see the checkered flag.
Yep, starting to think about what you have to say on the podium, having some water, and maybe relaxing in the air conditioning a bit. And here we go. There's Mr. Reedman taking his 3rd win of the season, looking for his 3rd straight Liqui Moly Pro Sport Bike Championship, and this win is another major step towards that accomplishment. Reedman relaxing a bit, letting the fans know we're down at turn 2, where the fans are close enough to almost yell at you as you pass by. It's one of the fun things about this track is you really do feel like you're interacting with the fans and and Reedman seems pretty happy about this one as he heads out to get the checkered flag. And of course, one of the traditions of Canadian road racing is that lap with the flag.
Yeah, it's an honor to get that checkered, to do that final lap with the checkered flag and show your appreciation to all the fans. And like you mentioned, you get to be so close as a fan to these racers at this track, and it's really a great opportunity for them. And I know Kenny does like this track, and he did really well. And obviously our local Ron coming in third there, and Thomas a strong second. Again, that's got to be building his confidence going forward.
And I think moving forward, we have a race tomorrow. We're hoping that maybe Michael Taylor can be a little more involved. He won't be satisfied with fourth. Stacey Nesbitt a strong sixth, and she rode up through. Leki, very good result. Corey Canfield, another one of our locals on an older Suzuki, doing a good job. And Grant Smith, his first time here. 9 finishers, all getting good points and into the money here at Atlantic Motorsport Park. Now let's head to the podium to meet our top 3.
You're used to doing pretty good here at Atlantic Motorsport Park, being the Maritime Road Racing Champion, but now we're on a different stage. We're on a national level, so at the end of it, you're standing up here with a trophy, with the big guys. How's it feel?
Awesome. I mean, the last few years, it's always been the bridesmaid, never the bride. But part way into the race, I turned around, I was like, holy, I just passed Michael Taylor. Uh-oh, I just passed Michael Taylor. That means he's right behind me. But no, it was an awesome run, a hell of a run. These guys are just amazing to race with.
For those of the fans out here, they always like to know, I always have the same question that I like to ask people. What is your favorite corner here at Atlantic Motorsport Park?
Oh, for sure the last corner. You know, you're aiming for the sky. There's nothing really, it's hard to get a marker and you're just wishing for the best. You roll on the throttle and you just hope for the best, right? And yeah, I love coming out here. It's such an amazing track, very physically demanding. Me and Kenny got off to a good start, and I was right with him. I had a good pace. I felt I could keep with him, and then slowly, bit by bit, I did a few mistakes. Tires started going, and I started getting tired, losing a bit. But for sure, we're gonna step our game for tomorrow.
Didn't look like you even put a wheel wrong at any given time. I know that's easier said than done here, especially this track where it's so technical. Looked like a good run. How did it feel on the bike?
Oh yeah, it felt great. You know, my whole crew has worked really hard getting this Kawasaki Ninja ZX6R set up really good, and with the Dunlop tires too. I mean, it's pretty hot and greasy out there right now, and the tires started going off pretty early, but then they stayed very consistent and they didn't keep falling off, which was really nice. So it was actually kind of midway through the race when the bike started sliding around a lot more. It became a little bit more fun, and then I knew it was going to get more physical trying to hold on to the bike when it's sliding around, and you know, that's where I seem to excel in this class, is with my fitness. So I was pretty happy about that. Just like to thank my team and all my sponsors, all the fans for coming out here, and you know, I always love coming out here, and it's not just because of the lobster.
And that's the face of success, or at least a guy with a sunglass sponsorship. And let's look at our points. With a little over 50 points total available for a win, laps led, and pole position, Reedman is way in front here, well over a race. Yeah. Look down, Philip Leki, 4th is impressive. Michael Taylor has had some problems, so he's in 5th. Louis Rafa missed this round due to injury. He was looking very good in our championship.